The majority of your video delivery is on mobile, is that right?
These days it is, and actually has been for some time. Last year it was 70% of the brand video we did was on mobile.
And how many people in total could you potentially reach on mobile?
Monthly active users, are about 100 million.
And what have you seen in terms of the effectiveness of video on mobile versus desktop?
Well, I think you and I discussed this. Sort of counterintuitively, mobile performs much better across a whole bunch of dimensions. You have better engagement, you have better completion rates, you have better post-view activities, in other words, clicking to something afterwards. The reasons for that, when you start to think about it, become a little more intuitive. It takes up the whole screen, the buttons are bigger, you don't have the distractions that you have on a desktop with maybe even a couple of monitors. So we have been moving brands onto mobile, even though they typically buy a multi-screen from us, simply because our system automatically sort of weights what performs best, and that's really helped the shift.
Now, those results match what we're seeing at ComScore, and we were really surprised at how much impact these mobile ads were generating. We hypothesized the same reasons. Even though it's a smaller screen, you are taking up that entire screen, and you get more
and it's more
engagement.
intimate too.
Right.
And you're looking at it, a larger portion of the day, 150 times or whatever the statistic is. So.
The other thing we thought that might be happening is that with mobile, you have a higher likelihood of being lower in the funnel. And so you're delivering a message when somebody might well be closer to the actual purchase, where it might be easier to get some impact.
In many cases, absolutely. Or in an experience that they're much more involved in, because all of us are so fragmented, I think, on our desktop devices. There's just so many things happening. But on a mobile device, you're there. And so we think it's an excellent value for advertisers. And we made an investment in it a couple of years ago. As you know, 86% of the activity that happens on a smartphone is in an app, not on the mobile web. So that makes for a whole complexity in terms of how you deliver and how you reach the audience and how you track it. Because, as you know, cookies, all of a sudden, no value.
Yeah, we're seeing that 86% number. And if you look at it in terms of total time spent online, apps are now accounting for about 52% of all the time, which is a staggering change. So you were delivering the videos into the app, right?
Correct.
And you can target that on a site-specific basis or a publisher-specific basis?
We certainly can. And what happens when you're in an app, just to get there, you need a piece of technology called an SDK, a software development kit. And when my CTO told me that we needed to build this, I almost had a heart attack, because it was 18 months of development, very expensive, very complex, to deliver this tiny little piece of code that's less than a megabyte. But what happens is you're asking an app developer to basically inject that into his or her code and then resubmit the app to iOS and to Android, and then have everybody update it. So it's a big operation. Once you're there, however, it's not like there's a platform and a publisher. We see all the registered users. So when a brand says to us, listen, we want to reach 18 to 34-year-old males in a sports environment, yes, we can go, here are the apps that are appropriate. We can also suggest maybe go to some apps that are a little bit counterintuitive, because we see the 18 to 34-year-old males.
So it's audience buying.
Correct.
Right? But with the ability to also deliver that ad to that audience at a specific location.
Correct. And you're touching on, I think, two proclivities that our clients have that are maybe competing with each other. One is, I don't care where it runs, I just want the audience. Get me the right audience. The second one is, of course I care where it runs. I want to be on prestigious publishers, because I want my ad surrounded by content that I feel comfortable with. And I think those interests really balance each other out, but we get a little of each.
Is the audience buying accelerating in terms of importance of the business?
We have seen it accelerate this year. I personally feel like it's a bit of a trend, and we also get pushback sometimes. Every proposal that we send off, I think that, and it's typically with a media agency, they will push us to say, look, I want some premium publishers in here. What premium? That's almost the first question you get. So as much as they want the audience, I think maybe it's even a little old-fashioned to still say, I want to be with CNN or Weather or whatever the publisher is.
Now, all of the videos that you deliver are user-initiated, right?
Correct.
Today, you don't have any autoplay. What do you think the future is going to be?
Well, the future may have some, I don't know if it'll be autoplay, but think of it an interstitial, which is slightly different. An autoplay, to me, I recoil when I hear that word because it smacks of things that are less than ingenuous. An interstitial is an interruptive unit. In an app environment, you're going from one page to another and there's a commercial break. So we're considering that format. We have not done it to date.
So you are sacrificing some reach with the user-initiated.
Yes, we don't have anywhere near the reach that TV does, but we can drive millions and millions of views. They are more expensive because they're user-initiated, and they're much more specific than a typical, let's say, pre-roll campaign.
So what is the agency generally thinking strategically then when they deliver in a user-initiated environment?
I think agencies come to us for a couple of reasons. We're working a lot more with the social teams than we ever have been because they're creating content that was made for the environment, and they want engagement. They don't just want reach. They want specific audiences. They want activity afterwards. They want it to drive to the owned property of the client afterwards. And I think even a lot of the traditional digital teams will buy us for those reasons. We're one of the few platforms that can really deliver a long-form video and get great engagement with it.
So what's the secret to getting that user to initiate that play?
Well, the secret was a lot of work building that SDK so that we can get to the right audiences. And you know, in our wheelhouse, we have a bunch of different tools. We have the publishers, which is a great start. We have the audience, which is another start. And then you place it in a way on those apps that is non-interruptive but very visible. And a lot of them will be big native placements. So right in the feed of the content, you'll see an ad. And I think that drives a lot of engagement. Other times we'll reward the user. We'll say you can get an hour of free music on Grooveshark if you watch this video. And so it's a combination of those things.
So there is some incentive generally to play the video?
Well, it depends. In the native units, you would say no, because you're just reading an article and you're clicking on it because you care. In a music app or a news app, there might be an incentive. And we are big believers in those. I will say that a lot of our clients are not favorable with them. And so many times we'll just go native. But most of our engagements have some sort of reward component built in. And our clients see tremendous value from it. The repeat clients that we've had for years love the blend of both because they get the visibility of the big publishers and the big native units, and then they'll also have something in a music and entertainment app that drives incredible value for them and that they pay less for, honestly.
Yeah. Going back to autoplay for a second, do you think that it's likely that the autoplay video will be generally shorter than the user-initiated? I mean, if the user initiates it, presumably they have, by definition, an interest, and they're going to run it for, you could run it for 3 minutes or so, right? Whereas with the autoplay, you maybe have to go shorter, right?
Exactly. I can't get over that word. So I'm going to call it an interstitial. Okay. But yes, it will be much shorter. It's probably around a 10-second break. And I think that we have to test that because one thing our publishers, our clients just as much as brands are. So we want to make sure that it works in their environment and their users feel good. One of the reasons our publishers like us is because we don't interrupt. We have Fortune 500 brands. There are no app installs or anything like that. And the payouts tend to be higher, and the fill rate is very good because there's a lot of demand. So if we do an interruptive unit, we want to make very, very sure that we're not offending the people that use that app because they're precious, obviously.
Okay, one last question for you. Have you run any of the Vine ads?
We have. We have run very short ads. We get asked to do that occasionally, and with great results. Obviously, completion rates skyrocket with a Vine ad. But it's interesting. As these new formats get developed, we see our agency partners experimenting with us. And they'll say, what can you do with this? Or what would you recommend? And then that's a fun ask to go back to our operations team and say, how can we play with this? What can we do to really drive results?
Yep. Cool. Well, thanks. That
Pleasure.
was great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.